developing, as I've shown you right now, it's actually quite quick, right? I don't have to actually do a full read deploy, and I don't have to actually make and even install and stuff like that, right? So I actually just have to bundle, and that bundling is relatively quick, right? So why actually would I want to actually fasten my development cycle even more? And that actually leads to the problem that you have, or normally in a project have, that you're working with a project manager, a product manager, a designer, a UX guy, and who else actually wants to be informed about the process or the progress of the product, right? So the easiest way is if you don't use dog fooding, or you use dog fooding, but you don't actually deploy every PR to it. It's actually to show people your work with an independent version of it, right? So what we're using in our team right now, it's React Storybook, right? This actually helps us to deliver components much quicker, right? And actually have validation of those components actually on a really, really early age with the PM and with the UX or designer guy, yeah? Because you can do the screenshot, and actually my designer screamed all the time when there was like a pixel off. So that was a good thing before it came to the product to have it fixed. So how do we actually do that, or what do we do? What do we use? So actually, what is Storybook? Storybook, it allows you to browse a component library, view different state of each component, and interactively develop and test, right? So here's a screenshot of the one that you're actually right now seeing, right? So as you can see, what I'm doing here is like I included some specification, right? So here it's actually my rendered view, right? It's our presentation, the one earlier, right? And I actually validated that I can see the main div. So what we actually using Storybook for as well is to actually include acceptance criteria. So this one is a nice, you can't see it really well, better. So here it's an animated GIF to actually show you that you can actually add the component in different states, right? And with different data passed to it, so you can simulate very easily different edge cases that you might find, or that somebody might find in your component, right? So the other thing is, like, there are some nice shortcuts, because for example, when I tickle Control Shift and F, I actually get my full menu back here, and I can go on and, for example, navigate through my stories. For example, here you can actually see I have two specifications, right? And we render it. We will come to that right now. Let's go back to our presentation. Yeah. So let's make this big again. So what I said, it's like what I've shown you before. It's like you've seen the green dots, right? These green dots, they're based on the Storybook specification add-on, right? That's a really nice add-on for Storybook, which allows you to actually add JUnit test into your Storybook component. It's like, for someone that maybe not obviously see the advantage of it, it's like that you have or developed your component, and within a preview of that component, you actually can add the acceptance test, right? This allows you to simulate all the acceptance criteria that somebody can actually give to you, besides still being in the product, right? What we are not doing here is actually to check whether that is working, what I'm doing in Jenkins, right? That would be the last integration test, let's say that. So the other nice thing is, not only you can actually run this test, it's like, let's see a test actually, that you can run a test, right? Let's go to the Hello page, but you can actually yeah, you can then later on run that as well in from the command line, right? So let's go to our hello world example. Let me make my windows small. So let's make that smaller, like doing like that. Sweet. So here we go. So for example, you see that my two tests right now are actually in sync, right? For example, we did small to small, two small ones. I said the accepted web div hello, right, should be 1, and our expected our logo, right, should be 1 as well. So for example, we have here logo, and we actually pass a child to it, right? And so it goes, I love my crazy, right? So let's correct that, for example, and put Jenkins in it. Jenkins. Right, let's save it. And now we have here my Jenkins. It's not the SVG that we saw, that's obvious, but you have more or less the feeling now how it would actually look like in real Jenkins, right? And now, for example, let's say we don't have this logo in it. What will happen if I here save it? As you can see here, I actually now have my specification broken, right? So what happens actually if I do here in my command line, for example, an npm test, npm run test, it will actually tell us, or should tell us, that we actually are in a failed state, and that would actually break our build right now. So come on, so you can see here I have my fail, right? And it says like, say hello unit, and it's our logo component. Expected 0 to be 1, right? So here actually is the link to our molly where it's going wrong. The hello SP, right? It would be exactly this, right? 25. And now I can decide whether this is an error that I need to fix, or whether I need to fix the test or the code, right? So here you see now it's back green again, and as you can see, what the only thing that I'm doing always is I save here, control save, right? And it instantly refreshes my browser, right? That is because React Storybook is based on a Webpack server, and then using EO to actually notify the component to actually refresh. You can actually see that if you go here for the network traffic, you can see frequently that there is a ping to our server, right? It's like we use something similar in Jenkins, the SSE plugin, right, where we actually pinging our Blue Ocean, or Blue Ocean get pinged from the backend to refresh, for example, active runs and stuff like that. So yeah, so as said, it's like when I now run the same NT, right, here in my terminal, it should now actually do a build success, and you can see it actually failed, and everybody, it passes, right, and it's actually as we suspected it should be, right. So the second thing is like if I now go ahead and, for example, extend here my logo. For example, if I create like, let's go back. I think the part that I'm doing right now, it's explaining how I actually doing the presentation. And right, exactly. This is actually how we actually activated our tests, right? That are based in Storybook in our package JSON, right? So we have a look here in our package JSON. Right, you find Excel this component, and this we are using Jest to actually for not only running our test, but to as well to have an evaluation of our code coverage, right? How this is a ratio, like how many tests actually are covering all our source code, right? And there's some nice nice configuration, right, that you can actually use in Jest to change the outcome and the different processor. We are actually using JUnit in this case, right? And yeah, it's like we're running the whole Maven test, for example. We're using the Maven test, and it's the same as I said, like the NT, it's npm test, which would be exactly the same. So like the only difference between the one Maven will run, right, and the one we're running with npm test is that we're adding here lint1. We're using the JS builder from Jenkins, right, as an infrastructure to allow it to not to add or we have to implement all this. It's already done in JS builder, right? So one thing as an enabler is like one important thing that I didn't mention earlier is to actually tell Jenkins to run Maven and run npm on your npm based plugin. You actually have to tell Maven that with a file, and we're using the file flag Maven execute not, right? With that, Maven actually knows, because it will actually start a profile with a front-end plugin and then do all the compilation with not an npm, right? So it actually installs here for you the not, right, and an npm, and uses that one to create the different not modules and stuff like that. So coming back to our presentation, I actually have more time. I actually will spend it to explain a little bit the presentation. So when you maybe came in, you saw these are my slides, right? It's like we are actually in that one right now. So if you can see, here are my slides. So what we're doing here is we're creating an object, right? And then I actually add a complete array, right? And with this array, I just use one component. And I said, I want to render it with a slider, right? So the slider is actually the overall component that you actually, what you see here, right? So if you see here, this is actually a drop-down box, right? So what I did is I create or use the slider in source, main.js slider, right, to actually activate some nice things. Like you couldn't see that right now because there's no video, but what we actually added was we have some key handler in our presentation, so I can go arrow with arrow right and arrow enter. I can actually go to the next slide and see that, right? And I can use the left arrow to go to my previous slide, right? So what I'm then doing is like I'm getting from the properties all the slides, right? And I create here, this is actually a GDL component. GDL is Jenkins design language, right? It's a drop-down box that I'm using here. And I pass the slides that I want with the options. And here I actually render my current slide. So what this component simply does, it keeps on the state in which current slide I am, right? So each slide then actually gets here the information how it should be rendered. And since we have seen that before, I will mention it here again. It's like I only imitate here the overall Blue Ocean header, right? And then use Markdown to actually render the content, right?
So just so I understand, you're using Blue Ocean components to create your presentation.
Exactly. This is all Blue Ocean. It's like everything, it's copy and pasted by Blue Ocean, like adapted a little bit, but yeah.
So you can do all kinds of things with these components.
Exactly.
And you've shown us here the testing of those components, and then also shown us those in actions. And this is how you develop parts of Blue Ocean then.
Exactly, exactly. And this is actually this. You could implement this whole component, right? In the Jenkins, in the Jenkins that I have shown you before, right? This one I actually could add here a new tab and point here the presentation of my plugin of our work, and it would go into that mode, and you will be able to exactly do what we do here without any frictions.
So what you're shooting for here in the long run is to have the same kind of plugin extension points that have made Jenkins great in the past and allowed users to create new things on top of Jenkins, to have those also, that kind of thing also in Blue Ocean.
Exactly. It's like the aim is like in a second version, for example, I may actually use some real life REST endpoints, right, to render it, for example, a weather plugin, right? There you can actually include that in your Blue Ocean based developments, right? Because in the end, it's just extend an extension point. And as you said, the great point of Jenkins until now had always been the Jenkins, the extension points, right? So we actually allowing that as well in the front end. We aren't perfect yet, right? But we're close to getting there. So for example, one downside is not all the extension points allow like a simple implementation. Normally it's like they will use every extension point or will call every extension point that they find. If you have an area of an extension point implementations, all will be called, right? But that not all the time is that what you want. But these are things that we're known problematic, but we are on the verge to make it very, very easy to add your not-based development, right, on top of Jenkins in no time at all.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
With testing integrated, so yeah.
Excellent.
So
right,
yeah,
thank you, Thorsten.
If there's some other question, you can always write me, share it. It's my name, and you have seen I will show here the.
And this Blue Ocean seed, the BO seed, that's also has your presentation in this code, right?
Exactly. It's like this has everything, and it's work out of the box standalone. It's like you can see there, and you can actually play around with it. You can change my presentation if you want.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.